Let me show these suckers how to ball out here. Oh man, let's get this together here. Oh, layup. Oh, shot. Oh, three. Oh, it's like Brick City out here. Mid-range. Oh my goodness, I can't buy a bucket out here. I missed the whole damn basket. Oh my goodness, what's going on, man? My game is looking trash. Oh, here we go. Black Power Media shirt. Now we cooking. Trees. I'm taking on three of y'all with these right here. Between the legs. Oh my goodness, behind the back. Layup. Oh, and did he just do a reverse? He is in beast mode out here. I ain't gotta look, it's falling. Oh my goodness, this guy is going 3, 2, 1. Kobe! Nice. Black Power Media, baby. Nice. Empower yourself. Go get you some of that Black Power Media again. Right here, blackpowermedia.org. Yeah.
It's word, sound, and power that break down the barriers of oppression and drive away transgression and rule equality. Well, right now, you have a system or a system. We're going to this country after long ages times, 400 years, and the same bucky master business, and black inferiority, and brown superiority, and white superiority. Rule this little black country here for a long times. Well, I come with earthquake, lightning, and thunder to break down these barriers of oppression, drive away transgression, and rule equality between humble black people. Talking about pirates. You have some little pirate now, just come from America, all boat, and with them camera and them TV business. So go do it. Get rich off fire and I. But hear me now, man. I don't make source and I can't come talk to I know, cause I lightning I flash. Oh, anywhere in the ends of the earth in the day, I flash lightning. So to make sure to come give me some good argument about my rights. See, I'm not calling on name, cause people eat off on the head. Well, right now, Jamaica have been living under this colonial imperialistic situation for a long time. See? We're irrespective of what's going on now and what government in power. Government have to know that you have a whole lot of evil forces to fight who don't like to see nothing progressive, so learn that. And the devil is a dangerous guy. Saying, and you're not that. This year is anti-apartheid year. What means say black people must be more aware and conscious of them constitutional rights when most black people who is called the underprivileged don't know what name so. You might forgot to ask someone who is privileged. You know what I'm saying? You hear me, man, them big old bright lights on me, I don't know what I go. How can I business swamp? I don't want to blind man. Oh, you know, turn off them thing there, so them light are too focused on my man. Just go so with it or so or up so. I don't want to. Sure. Well, right now, you see, this system here, this colonial system here. Yes, me want to see who me I talk to. Pay a bloodbath light in my eye. This colonial system will rule the underprivileged. I am one of them who happen to be in the underprivileged sector. You know what I'm saying? Hustled by police brutality. Times and times again, I have to run up and down for what? For just have a little spliff in my pocket, or have a round of herb, or I go buy a draw. You go buy a draw, you have your tents, and cock your body and all them bloodbath until you come back. Because police could have back you up, roadblock could have down the road. You have to talk the truth. Because them thing there's when me go through a bloodbath already. Seen? And them the thing there. Learn this, man. Those things is just things where Columbus and those guys who was the lawmakers in those times set up to keep the underprivileged. Seen? In a scene, because learn this, man. This society, you have three classes of people in this society. You have the upper middle class, you have the middle class, and the lower middle class. I and I, who is the poor and the underprivileged and the sufferer in the ghetto, happen to be in the lower middle class, struggling to get in the middle class, and fighting to reach there. Well, the rigid force up there who control the Jesus, in a scene, and them big bank account in Switzerland, and them thing there. Them guys say, well, we can't make them thing there happen, you know. It's few little big guys start them thing there, you know. And the poor suffer at all time. Right now, we can't even get soap or shop or Rasta castle. Show them big bloodbath guys there. You know, see, me want the client cook all my food, me can't get them thing there. I and I have to set up this country here and eliminate all those shit steam that black poor people don't live in confusion. Cause hungry people are angry people. I am not a politician, but I suffer the consequences. See? Well, right now, you see if the government, right now, Mr. Manley, me go and talk to you personally, because me can't talk to you, because me his friend, so you say. You see? Well, right now, right now, in this 1972 election, because a long time I don't like come talk to you, but right now, me can't get to talk to you, because I have to make appointment and all them business there. You see? And too much thing, and me have the whole world on my shoulder. You see? Well, right now, as a man of power and a ruler of this little country here. Not you alone, Mr. Siaga too. Oh, because I said go. We would like the members of parliament must come together. If not dealing with the people and the suffering class, car police still out there brutalize poor people for what? A little draw herb. See? Every time me go to country, me have to afraid till me reach back on my yard to buy a little draw herb. And me personally, if it was for me alone, every police station lock up and police go sleep on yard and hug up in wife. You know? Me no want nothing for thief. Me go through the lowest degradation of humiliation and incrimination and brutality. And yet still I never bend my mind and say, boy, I make a try lick off a man in the shop door and say, for that whole something. Still I not say my brothers are criminal, you know. Learn this, because when Columbus and Henry Morgan and Francis Drake come on here, I'm gonna call them pirate and put them in a reading book and give us observation that we must look at and live the life and the principle of pirates. See the youth them now fire up them gun like Henry Morgan, same way. You know scene? So them the system they have to change. So right now, if the government just come together and say, right now, if we want to build this country and build the people them, because right now you can't build the country and don't build the people. People suffering from malnutrition and all them things they're going around. We can't afford to have them things there. We have whole heap of land out of plant herb, sell to them, sell to the pirate them, because if them did have the herb not for them country, we couldn't get none. You know scene? Well, I and I blessed with this resource here. I want to quiet on here while I say it's earthquake, we quick. I don't think it's no joke business this, you know. Let's look more go down police broke on the Rasta castle same way. Oh, fair little draw herb, and it's just a shit steam that lay down to belittle the poor. You know saying? It's only the poor go to jail. Every time you go in a jail is a poor man, a poor people me seen there. The rascal, they go a courthouse, it's full of poor people. You know saying? Well I heard. Well I like the government do something towards this. Just tell the police them say. Right now, just ease down them little thing. You see a man just spliff a go on road. Right now, let me tell you something. In America, Germany, France, England, Italy, they go to all them places physically, mentally, and spiritually. I know me go see. And every pack of cigarettes is marked warning. The Sergeant General warns that cigarette smoking is dangerous, a hazard to your health. See, in a black man country that not there, making go and smoke and kill off himself. That them can get to inherit the earth. You know, see, and we dead gone to heaven. See, say if I don't want to go over a phone business, I will be here a billion years.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. Yes. What's up, world? Welcome to another edition of I Mix What I Like right here on BPM. Again, I'm Jared Ball. Very happy to be your host. Just a little bit of Peter Tosh's omitted context speech, just one of many aspects to be considered as we get into a discussion, another discussion of this film. So please do, again, like, share, subscribe. Welcome to those who are here live, to those who will see and hear this later. Welcome to you as well. But without further ado, I want to bring, as I said, I told Kamal this in addition to the bio I'm about to read, this is my favorite person in the world outside of my immediate household. Her name is Suzette Gardner, also known as Soul Rebel, who, among other things, is a dynamic radio host, producer, and marketing technologist with a profound passion for roots reggae music and community empowerment. Her journey in radio began as a music librarian and selector at Irie FM in Jamaica, the world's first 24-hour reggae radio station, where she immersed herself in the rich cultural heritage of reggae music. Soul Rebel has produced programming at WPFW, shout out to them, of course, and has been involved in a variety of community radio projects. Currently, she serves as the host of Roots Rock Reggae Live on Tacoma Radio 94.3 FM in Maryland, where she shares her love for positive roots reggae music with listeners around the world. Suzette is a recipient of several DC Reggae Awards for her contribution to the DC reggae music scene, and as the publisher of RastafariToday.com. Soul Rebel is a marketing technologist and lives in Jamaica and the DMV with her family. And again, just a small addition to that, one of JB's Jab's favorite people, Suzette.
Yeah.
What's up, sis? Welcome back to the program, to the platform. Always good to see you. How are you?
I'm good. I actually just got back from Jamaica last night. So you could say I'm hot out of the oven.
Right on. So, well, let's start there. What's going on in Jamaica? How are things? What's the latest? What's the latest?
Well, Jamaica is good. It's beautiful as always. Good weather. They're just getting into their election season. In fact, they just had a local government elections a couple of days ago, and folks are getting a little antsy because we can't tell who won, or the counting seems unusually slow. So that's a little bit of a simmer going on there. The current government, sells itself as the prosperity government, but a lot of people aren't feeling that prosperity. So they feel, there might be a little change afoot.
Well, prosperity for who? That's always the
exactly. But folks are, enjoying the promotions from the Marley movie. It's everywhere. And, there's a lot of tourism that's being pinned on that product. So lots going on in Jamaica. It's beautiful. I had the opportunity to check out some live shows there. So, happy to report that Roots Reggae is alive and well in Jamaica also.
Right on. Shout out to live music. Glad to hear that that's still going on and live and strong. So you said that the country is enjoying and I like how you use the word product. That I appreciate that use of the term there, but that they're enjoying the tourism boost. Is that what you're saying? That is coming from this film? Are they enjoying the film itself?
Well, tourism has been doing well in Jamaica. We had about, I think, over 4 million people pass through at least one of the ports last year. So folks are coming down there, raising eyebrows in the United States, which, recently put out an advisory for citizens that are traveling to Jamaica. So we assume that there's been some friction in the background that caused that to happen, given the amount of folks that are going down and buying property and so on. But where the movie is concerned, it is bringing people in that are curious, even more than usual. And the film, though, it's interesting. I think it's being used as a tourism vehicle. I think the government of Jamaica, the tourism ministry anyway, seem to be partnering with the folks that have put out the film. For example, when you're in the Montego Bay Airport Departure Lounge, there is all the surfaces. So many of the surfaces are promoting the film of the previews running on loop. There's also a massive Marley restaurant in that departure lounge. It's beautiful, the renovation. There's Marley's Volkswagen buses there, so people can see it. Lots and lots of merchandising. It was fascinating passing through there and just noticing the promotions. People are talking about the film in a variety of ways. One, there's criticism that it's missing, some kind of oomph, which is a part of the popular feedback, you can hear about the film. It doesn't really say what gave Marley his fire. On the other hand, there are people that are talking about Marley's domestic life, that the film did not adequately deal with that. He was married to Rita Marley, but had children with several other women, some of whom are prominent in Jamaica still. So some people are not happy with how they were treated, or feel like this was how they should be treated. They're not white. So there are those things. And, from merchandising perspective, definitely, a hot item. But the people themselves, are concerned also with, cultural issues, like, why didn't the movie feature Jamaican actors in the most prominent ways? Jamaicans were in the film, but the leads were not Jamaicans. So there's a lot of effort to point out that the actors and actresses playing, lead roles were coached by Jamaican linguists and so on and so forth. And that also speaks to a movement in Jamaica to give more respect to our national language, which is of course Jamaicans, instead of English. Mm-hmm.
Well, so we can come back to this on the national level, but what did you think? Do you agree with any of these criticisms? Do you think, for instance, starting even with the last one, do you think it's important that they would have had more actual Jamaicans involved in the production of the film or in the casting?
Yeah, I don't agree with Ziggy Marley that he couldn't find a Jamaican actor to play Bob or a Jamaican actress to play Rita. I mean, if so many TV shows in America can find Jamaican actresses to play Americans, so why couldn't we find a Jamaican to play Jamaican? Shirley Ralph, for example, is doing well here. She's Jamaican, award-winning.
And I'm down for her to be in any and as many products as possible. So if you want to suck a JB, you just put her in anything. I'm down with it.
I will.
Well, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if there's a defense for that, the obvious point would be, but is there not only a Jamaican actor qualified to play the part, or is there a Jamaican celebrity, even at the level of, forget the brother's name?
Benadir.
Yeah. I mean, how many, or is there a Jamaican actor of that even level of celebrity that they could say would have had the star power to attract, as if Bob isn't enough of a star to attract an audience.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely think Bob Marley is a big enough star to, a film about him would definitely pull people in. And I don't know if I don't consider the person who played Bob in the film to be a big star. I mean,
no,
he's been in a couple of other stuff, but this movie could raise his profile versus the other way around. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they could have tapped some folks back home, but I think that is important. But I think what is even more important is the content of the film, what it shows Jamaica to be about, and the fact that it left out, many of the things that inspired Bob Marley, or many of the uncomfortable truths about Bob Marley. The fact that he is a Rastafarian, which was a very difficult thing for him to explain to the world, his inspiration, and the fact that he was a very religious person, a person who is also guilt-ridden, always feeling like he's sinning, and had to really fight to be a personal fight to be the person that he was. Bob Marley is essentially what one would regard as an angel, a messenger sent to us, with a very powerful message. And he defied, or demystified what people thought an angel should look like. Their holy book, the Bible, does say an angel is a messenger, but a messenger is a human being. And Bob Marley is from the countryside of Jamaica, where I'm from, and in that area, you have lots of people who consider themselves angel and messengers and walk around warning people about things. He grew up in those hillside communities, that I visited as a child, and found the people a little bit weird myself, being from the coast. So so there's a lot of things which I think are complex and fascinating, which would make for good storytelling that the film didn't really delve into, to paint a picture of that struggle. There's no real struggle in the film, that would make it really sail and resonate in the way that Bob Marley's own music, does across the world until today.
Again, I want to come back to some of these, but I want to, if I can, throw out a couple of other initial talking points. One of which is that, my wife and your friend saw the film with me and pointed out, I think to her credit, that it's a kind of contradiction in that we want to have more, we want to hear more of the perspectives of women and Black women in particular. But all of the flaws, a lot of the flaws, as we saw it in this film, emanate from the fact that this is told from the perspective of Rita. This is very much, it seems like, Rita's film, in the sense that Rita's perspective of Bob in a limited fashion, as opposed to a film about Rita or even a more fully evolved discussion of her views of having been his wife and musical partner and touring partner, business partner and all of this, and then sort of the carrier of his legacy after his death. Do you see it at all that way? Did you see that, for instance, the point about it being Rita's version, which is one of the reasons why some of his, the other women in his life were sort of erased or just backgrounded without lines in the film?
I don't see it as Rita Marley's film. I see it as Ziggy Marley's film. Ziggy Marley and his wife's film. Rita has not been communicating well or in any kind of way that she had a stroke some years ago, and which does not mean that she's not communicating at all or doing anything. But I think the children are in charge now, even of her own story. And I think this was Ziggy Marley's film. This is a film that was created by the estate. And I know she's named as a producer, with Cilla Marley and Ziggy Marley and a bunch of other folks. But I think that's where the money comes in, from the foundations and all of the stuff that gives the naming rights. Cindy Breakspear, who was the mother of one of his child and who has a very long relationship with Bob Marley, just before he became really famous. She's also named in the film as a consultant. So she, had some input into how she herself was portrayed, and did not seem to take issue with the fact that there was a lot of cutting where more was made about her life with him or her time with him, but that got cut out. So she didn't really take an issue so much until when people started gossiping about how she was left out and so on. But I think it's really a film by Ziggy Marley. It's a commercial film to commercialize and to bring more money into, the coffers, basically, for that the children all split. And this is a film about money, really, and not necessarily about Bob Marley. It's about extending his brand, making more of his brand. That's what I saw when I watched it. So I didn't really get that it was a film about Rita. And of course, if you're making a film about your own mother, you're gonna put her in the best light possible. And but Rita Marley herself, she's written a book about her life. And she was very even-handed in how she talks about her time with Bob Marley. She talks about needing attention and not getting it. She talks about her own affairs, with other men while she was married to him. She talked about accepting that she became a wife and then became like a sister, became someone who was a nagging person. She is, when she was talking a lot more, outside of her book, she was very clear and very evolved in how she saw herself in that relationship and who Bob Marley was. You know, she felt he was beyond her, you know, in terms of being an angel, a messenger, and that her job was really just to support him.
Interesting. Okay. Right
Mhm.
on. Right on. So what of well, you mentioned a little bit of his religion and some of what the film does not do in terms of showing what would have inspired his politics and his direction.
Mhm.
Uh, One of the I started with the Peter Tosh clip because I thought one of the ways that the film carefully framed the approach to Bob prescribed the way in which it would deal with those politics and ideas, including the almost entire erasure of the Whalers, no reference by name to Peter
Mhm.
Tosh, no involvement or engagement in the political differences between Tosh and himself, or even the fact that I honestly didn't even know until like last week that Tosh and a whole bunch of other people spoke at and performed at the very concert that they not only framed limiting Bob's life at the
Mhm.
1978 show, but they don't even let us know that other people were there or that Tosh was
Yeah.
there, or certainly that Tosh had this whole anti-colonial speech
Mhm.
in the film at the thing before. So could you talk a little bit about any of that, and then what you think would have been important to highlight about what drove Bob to whatever politics he did adopt wherever he was at the end of his life, and maybe what those differences were with Tosh and others?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, you know, at some point, you know, and Rita Marley does talk about it in her book, and other people who have written about Bob's life. You know, many of the things that he did, he became a handled man, you know, a handled musician. He remained true to his spirituality and his politics, but he got so big, he became, you know, somebody handled. I think that we only think about Bob Marley, especially outside of Jamaica. I think in Jamaica, people know that Bob Marley was not the only performer at that concert. There was Dennis Brown, who remains massive. He is regarded as a crown prince of reggae, and so many other big names at the time. I think I was a little child, but I remember that Junior Tucker, I think, performed at that show because I was a child and he was a child, and I was interested in what he was doing. Um, so, you know, people do know other people, but the fact that Bob Marley stood out, I think, has a lot to do with who was in control of his estate and his music and stood to gain the most from it. And when you look, you can see Chris Blackwell, for example, from Island Records. Uh, you know, I've been looking over his life and stuff that's been written about him, and you know, testimonies from a variety of people. And Chris Blackwell keeps coming up. All the women that Bob Marley had, you know, relationships with, right behind them was Chris Blackwell. It's kind of fascinating, you know. So I felt like Bob Marley was being handled and fed a lot more than people realize. There's more to come about his story when you really look back. I think Rita Marley tried to tip that off to people that were listening to her story, but I recently realized that she can't be too critical of Chris Blackwell, because when the estate was in a lot of problem after Marley died, it was Chris Blackwell who loaned the family the money to purchase rights to Bob Marley's image and his catalog and so on and so forth. And it made sense that he loaned them the money. They went to Michael Jackson, who said, no, I could buy it, but I wouldn't lend it to you, the money. But it makes sense that Chris Blackwell would give them the money or lend them the money, because he made a lot of money off of Bob Marley, more than Bob Marley made off of himself. You know, so those are the original, musicians are always talking about how they got fleeced one way or another. It's just that Bob Marley made so much money with his music that he got enough to be super comfortable. But what about the other people, you know? So, there's a
So
lot
wait a
to
minute, Michael
learn.
Jackson could have loaned them and lent them the money, but was only willing to buy it outright, like he did the Beatles catalog at one point. That's
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 right.
that's disappointing to
That's
hear.
that's right.
That's
His one of
disappointing
his
to hear.
sons revealed that some time ago, that they were looking for, they didn't have any cash because the money was tied up in the estate and everything, And because Bob Marley died without a will, the government of Jamaica had the authority to put it up for sale and take the proceeds and distribute it among, the beneficiaries. And so they needed to purchase all of that stuff in order to move forward. And so they did borrow the money and they went shopping, but Chris Blackwell was the person who was willing to lend it to them. We don't know the terms of the deal, but yeah.
So, I mean, that was one thing that also frustrated me with the film, that it shows you Chris Blackwell is all over the place and clearly important to Bob's life, but not in any way that shows any, I think, negative aspects of manipulation or management and then what I forgot to go back and do this before we started today. What I remember reading years ago was that Blackwell, because it always bothered me because Concrete Jungle is one of my favorite songs, and it bothered me to read whenever ago, if I remember correctly, that it was Blackwell that brought in what I thought at the time was a white guitarist to play a rock and roll riff to make the song more palatable to a white rock and roll audience. In the movie, it's a black guitar player they bring in who I don't recognize and don't remember anything about. But it's through him that they sort of allude to that little bit of trying to, I don't know, make an adjustment to the sound for a broader audience, but it's not really, do you know is this fresh for you or is this particular piece of the history something that you remember or can help me clarify here?
It's true. They did try to market the music. I mean, look, it's the 1960s, in England, they're trying to make money in England where people actually had money to buy anything, if at all. And they try to make it a little bit more rockish because the young people were getting into rock and roll and it was a kind of rebellious music. I think that they overplayed they try to make it seem that Marley was so inspired by that group. But, Bob Marley was a businessman. He wanted to sell some records too. So he's definitely going to use some things that will get the music across. He's visionary in that he wants the music to spread. He wants to make money off the music, and he wants especially to get the message out to as many people as possible. So the rock appeal that Chris Blackwell took is true. And I think this Junior Marvin is the person that he brought in to play the guitar, who actually lived in the DC area, I think, up until recently, a few years ago. Yeah, playing with the Wailers downtown and all this kind of thing.
So the movie
real.
had that right. Junior Marvin was brought in by Chris Blackwell and introduced to the band that way. Okay.
I'm not sure if it was Chris Blackwell that brought him in, but yes, he did bring in that rock and roll that could bridge that gap to the rock audience and also to the American audience. That was very important. Bob Marley really wanted his music to take roots in the African American community. But at the time in America, Black folks that were in charge of things were still doing respectability, politicking. And so, having long meetings with the folks that ran Ebony magazine, for example, and long interviews with them, enduring it, and nothing got published there, no airplay. I will also say that if I go back and listen to those tapes or those interviews, you can hear Bob Marley talking about Rastafarianism and Rastafari. He was a great songwriter, more so than he was an eloquent speaker. And I can imagine, an African American at that time listening to someone talking about Jah, Rastafari, and the importance of Haile Selassie and the mission of, Black supremacy and Black unity, to find that the music is good, but the guy sounds a little like he's smoking too much of that thing, and being afraid to publish his work. So, many things stood in his way. When I was growing up as a child in Jamaica, it didn't seem like anything. But people knew, would talk about it, not in a gossipy way, but they would say, Bob Marley is inspired, but Rita Marley have the brains. That's what I grew up hearing as just common knowledge. So, she was a good speaker. She was an educated woman as well. So, she ran a lot of his business, while they were together. So, but going out there and being interviewed by these people, his message was clear and simple. And his message was Rastafari. And till today, a lot of people are still trying to understand, what does that mean? Difficult to get across to people.
Yeah, and before, that's one of the questions that I want to ask you about the relationship of Rastafarianism to Jamaica and how that was depicted in the film. But before I do, I want to just finish, at least for the moment, this point about his relationship and the film's lack of engagement in this with Tosh. When I was growing up, one of the other stereotypes that I got was that Tosh was Malcolm and Bob was Martin. How does that stereotype or generalization actually fit with reality? And what do you think of how the film dealt with Tosh and the Wailers, for that matter? But yeah,
I would say I could see why someone would frame it in that way. Peter Tosh, Bob Marley was more marketable for a variety of reasons. I don't think that is biracialism, for example, was the thing at that time, but I'm sure it didn't hurt. He was marketed because he was willing to do what it took to be famous, or I don't even think he was after fame, but to make money from his work. And in order for him to hit the biggest stages that he could possibly, he's a very motivated person. When you hear people talk about how Bob Marley worked hard and, the long hours he would rehearse and things like that, it's the same thing people say about someone like Michael Jackson or Stevie Wonder, or any other persons we'd regard as genius when it comes on to music. He had all of that. Peter Tosh, on the other hand, I wouldn't say that he didn't work hard, but he was very forthcoming about all of the issues. I recall, it might have been that same clip you played at the start of this program, where Peter Tosh was going on and on about, white supremacy and all this kind of stuff. And someone went to Bob Marley and said, "Can't you talk to Peter and just tell him to cool it down?" And Bob Marley said, "No, that's Peter is going to always speak his mind." So, they were from the same politics. Bob Marley believed the same things that Peter Tosh believed, but Peter Tosh had that edge. And on top of it, once Bob Marley became the chosen one to spread the music, Peter Tosh was left behind in a lot of ways, and he had a very antagonistic relationship with Chris Blackwell, who was the gatekeeper of all of those opportunities, And on top of it, he got so harassed in Jamaica. Common knowledge is that he had some, maybe perhaps mild brain damage from being beaten in his head by police for just possessing and smoking marijuana. He was very much abused all the time, stopped, beaten up all the time. When I was a child, I used to listen to him and Free Eye, another radio announcer, talk about their experiences and so much more on radio in Jamaica. But yeah, he really, got the really short end of the stick, being stuck in Jamaica a lot of time before he could tour and just being abused by the police. One of the fascinating things about this film is how it's being used by the government of Jamaica in a very open and obvious way for tourism, how Bob Marley's image is everywhere. But at the same time, Rastafarians are still a marginalized group in Jamaica. Rasta children going to school are sometimes forced to cut their hair. Their hair is cut without a parent present. They're just still a marginalized people. Yes, we have Rastafarians that are attorneys and are politicians even, and doing a lot of interesting things. But I don't think there has been enough reparations in Jamaica, that would justify the way that the government is using images of Rastafarians for, to get, people rich who are not even Jamaicans, because most Jamaicans don't own, the factors of the tourist industry. So that's one of the really interesting things, using Rasta's image to sell marijuana, sell weed, for companies that are not even Jamaican, that are calling themselves Jamaican. There's so much hypocrisy right now, and people are talking about that in Jamaica.
So a couple things, basic things quickly, please. Demographically, Rastafarians make up roughly what percentage of the population of Jamaica at this point?
I would say it's anywhere from 20% to 90%.
Oh,
I put it that way because maybe about 20% of the people have the courage to go all the way. And you find that when people feel like, they're rich enough, they have enough money, or, are a certain place in their life, they all become, I'm Rasta now. It's Rastafarianism is freedom. I'm ready and able to claim my freedom as a Black person. That is Rastafarian. So, it could be anywhere from 20 to really 80, to be honest. But I would say about 20% of the population definitely say Rastafari. And it's because Rastafarianism is also, liberation theology in a lot of ways. It is very patriarchal. And, once a man is able to step up and be himself, he starts growing out his hair, even more so than smoking weed, for example. But it's just to accept oneself. And yes, it's a growing movement still in Jamaica, and it's still also a oppressed movement by the government, and many instances of government officials and the Jamaican government killing Rastafarians, raiding their intentional communities. And, those are the backgrounds that inform Bob Marley's music, and many of the things that he sang about is that oppression and repression.
So cannabis, it's not legal there, or is it legal there? Or how is it treated there legally?
It's legal in small quantities. It's legal in small quantities, and unfortunately, the legalization is reactionary. The government of Jamaica did not decide to make cannabis legal in very small personal quantities until they got the go-ahead from America. And now we're seeing that marijuana is grown there and sent to the United States. They just celebrated, there was an article in the paper a couple of days ago talking about the first legal export of THC to the United States for DEA testing, by a Jamaican company.
That's what we're calling it. How was that being tested, by the way?
I'm very fascinated, but the gentleman I see that is the co-founder and CEO of this pure Jamaican group of companies is an European American man that
really?
has a green,
with the pure
long relationship, with pure Jamaican, is shipping marijuana, first legal shipment.
First legal for DEA to test it. So they're going to sit
DEA
around
to
and
test it, and they're
order
doing some kind
pizza.
of a military thing as well. So very fascinating.
They'll probably put on a copy of One Love and smoke out and assess the quality of the of this pure Jamaican product. This pure Jamaican product. That's why, because in the film, what I remember is you get one line where Bob is driving with one of the children or one of his sons or his kids. I can't remember who he's with in the car, but he's driving, and there's a quick, tense little bit of tension with the police until they realize it's him. And then he explains to the kids that Rasta is not always welcomed. But there's no, again, you don't walk away from the film with any real understanding. And to the point I think you were making earlier, how this tension would have driven his politics and his music, or played a role in driving his politics or his music. So I found that to be among the other things that's frustrating. I mean, I think there's so many things that could have been beautiful. I would have loved to see even a dramatization of what would have been a backstage encounter with Tosh at that concert, or where they talk about why they're not in a group anymore, or whatever their different versions of or perspectives of, or maybe they had an argument over Blackwell, for instance. I would have loved to see something like that if there's not an actual account that we can draw from as a record. If you're going to dramatize things as we see them do in films all the time, give us something like that would propel. but I don't. Again, I understand what you're saying. It's marketing. It's a product. But that was just one of the things I would have. I noted as an issue.
Yeah.
That was never done in the film. But
Yeah, it was
yeah.
unfortunate. Yes, there are many conversations. There's so many ways they could have done it, and I don't know why they chose not to show those things. I hear there's a lot more recorded than they actually
Oh yeah,
featured.
sure.
It's kind of like a music videos. They had these long songs. They played it out. So, it's really to sell records. I felt like it was like a music video, to be honest, in a lot of ways. And so it left people wondering and saying, what lit the flame for Bob to do all this music and stuff like that. You didn't see him reading at one time about Zimbabwe, but look at that song, which helped to liberate even South Africa. When Nelson
We
Mandela
got
came to
one
Jamaica,
line of
he talked
text
about it. Yeah, nothing. You
at
didn't
the
see
end of the
anything
film.
there. Yeah. And that was huge. I recently interviewed Dira Tompkins, who was in Zimbabwe
Mm-hmm.
with Bob Marley. And then she talked about how accessible Marley was and how much that he broke
Mm.
down and cried,
Mm.
at their independence and the raising and lowering of the flag, and how much he felt a part of that movement. And who knows all the stuff that he did for that, because he was a man that used his money, for revolution, as they say, as much as money can provide that. So much is missing. Nothing about his background, the religiosity of this background. They did show him at one time, I think, reading Rita Marley's palm, but he's a palm reader. He is a mystic man in that ways, and that would tell a story more about why he felt so invincible, not just because he's young, but he definitely
Mm.
started believing that he is a chosen person to spread a message, and he was sick, but he had to do all he could to get it out there as far and wide as possible. So lots of missing pieces. And you could see why. You could see who is behind the production, who are the people that are named, what are their interests, including his son, which Jamaicans are very upset with Ziggy Marley right now. A lot of folks are, because they felt like the film did not do justice to their hero.
Well, one of the issues that I know I have, and I've seen others, I don't know to what extent in Jamaica this is an issue, or even among Rastas in particular, is an issue. By the way, Ziggy is he an acknowledged himself as a Rastafarian? Does he practice it openly, or is he somewhere else publicly? Because I
Hard to
understand him to be a
tell, but
Zionist, but yeah, I mean
yes, he's definitely
yeah.
come out as a Zionist.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely come out as someone who attends Shabbat, Jewish religious services every week. So unclear what his spiritual practices are. He still says Rasta because there is a connection between Rasta and Judaism.
So that's the other thing.
You know.
Like, I would have loved to see some exploration of that. Like,
Mhm.
I know these are just anecdotal, but one of my most fascinating personal experiences was having not a debate, a friendly conversation in Tanzania with uh, uh, a Rasta, a self-proclaimed Rasta Tanzanian, in talking about part of the conversation was for him what he thought was his important reading of the so-called Old Testament and the relationship that Rastas that he felt he had with King David and the and I've always thought, again, my own biased criticism against all these religions and Judaism included made it hard for me to, and I kept struggling. I've always struggled, and I've never studied it, but I've always struggled with the pathway some Rastas will end up taking in their reading of this history in the Bible to end up supporting this current thing called Israel.
Mhm.
I would have loved even some exploration of that in the film that would maybe break that down in some. I know they're not going to do whatever, but it could have
Yeah.
done. Could you say, or would you want to say anything about that more, or that how that reading works, or how it
Mhm.
how it Yeah. Any,
Well, I would say in the Caribbean, these are all the problems of colonialism, which many other scholars have talked about, how it's taking us hundreds of years to unravel them because they were imposed on us for hundreds of years. And, being cut off from our spiritual roots, reclaiming some of those roots, and having the only pathway to those roots being the ones that are imposed on you, and hiding your spirituality, behind what's being imposed, the Christian saints and so on. We see this in Voodoo and Santeria and so many other things. I think Rastafarianism is the same thing, is trying to reach back for something, but the only paths you were allowed to take are those that the oppressor allowed you to take. So you do it through Christianity and Judaic practices until you finally arrive at perhaps something like the Ifa and other spiritual practices. So a longer conversation. I don't feel too qualified to talk about it. I could just talk about my own observations. But I definitely have been thinking that Zionism, for example, has always been an interesting topic for us to explore, even as Pan-Africanists. Many of us, especially those of us from Jamaica, we engage Pan-Africanism as a right to return to Africa. But when you look at what's happening in Israel, you have to think, how can we return? How should we return? Is that the right way to return, if we should return? It brings up a lot of questions, I also noted that some Rastafarians are slow to condemn what's going on in Israel and Palestine right now, because there are internal conversations in their community, and have always been, about who are the Jews, who are the Jewish people? Are those people that are there as Israeli citizens? Are those the people that, should be there? It's also bringing up new questions about the idea of a promised land, and when you go back and read some of the so-called holy text, land theft is justified in the Bible. But now we're seeing that experiencing land theft, it's against or believes in equal rights and justice. So there are so many questions that are coming up with some of the current events that I think are going to cause another shift in spiritual practices and our understanding. And there will be many implosions before, we get to a better place with some of this stuff. But lots of questions coming up, because many people are unable to stomach what they're looking at as a result of biblical politics, for example.
One of I didn't get, my mother didn't take me to a synagogue maybe more than I think 2 or 3 times in my life. But one time that we did go, and I don't even remember why we were there, I will always remember that these 2 women were introduced, and they were saying, it was said that they were going to come up and sing a song by Bob Marley. And I remember as a kid, I was like, oh, okay, all right. Because usually I was in there, probably bored and whatever. And I was just like, okay. And these 2 white women Jews sat up there, took out the acoustic guitars and started singing Zion Train.
Wow.
And even then, I do remember thinking, even then, I don't think when he wrote this is what he meant it for. Because, of course, they're singing it in the context of Zionist support for Israel.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't think, and looking back, I'm like, this is some weird reappropriation or whatever. Now, I don't know the details as I'm, I know this isn't your expertise per se, but I just know, it's certainly not mine, that wherever the overlap is with Rastas and Judaism, this is not it. I don't think this is really it. Or I'm convinced they don't mean the same thing. That these 2 women were not singing about the same freedom that Bob was singing about when he wrote that song. I'm just convinced of that. I don't have sufficient proof or evidence for my claim, but I just remember thinking, this is, to this day, I'm like, this is not. I don't think
it's the same thing. Rastas some Rastas will say, and I've had my own Rasta teacher. I'll come out and say that. And they will say that when they're talking about Zion, they're talking about Africa. They're talking about Ethiopia. They're talking about Black unity, Black progress. That's what they're talking about.
I
So, but
rest
it's
my
two different
case.
things. But the fact that your path to spiritual liberation is through the oppressor's lens and edited books. You're using some of the same language, so it's a little bit confusing. So I think this is definitely, to use another biblical phrase, a time of separating the wheat from the whatever and the sheep from the
Wheat from
goat.
the chaff and
It's
all
just
that.
it's
Yeah,
to make sure that what are we talking about when we use these words. And I could see a lot of folks are confused and are trying to say, that's not what I mean when I say what I said. I am against that. It's a big topic in Jamaica. I've said, having just come back from there, people are definitely talking about it, and are not allowing even our government to get away with not openly condemning the atrocities that are taking place in Gaza, for example, right now.
So, Suzette, how are you for time? We're coming up on an hour. How are you? Are you?
Wow, that was fast.
That was fast. That was
Yeah.
quick. I don't know how you are for time. If yeah, do you have any time to go any longer?
I do. I think I have another 10 minutes or so to chat to
Okay.
you. It's always good to talk to you.
I know it's any excuse. That's what I'm saying. So listen, if anybody has a comment or a question they would want, I'll check the chat. Please recycle it in these last few minutes. Otherwise, let me just ask you in general. So beyond just the film, is what else is going on that you're looking at or focused on, or maybe as a precursor to your next visit here, or what people could maybe as a preview to what's coming up on your show in coming episodes, or
Well, it's Women's History Month, or so they say. So,
right, yes.
I do host Roots Rock Reggae live on Tacoma Radio. You can check it out every Saturday from 1 to 3. I have a co-host, Ebony, as well. So we host it 1 to 3 p.m. on Saturdays. We can't afford more time to host it because there's so many things to do, so many good things to do. But it's also streamed, and of course, if you're in the DC area, it's at 94.3 FM. So we're going to play a lot of music by women. In fact, today I'm going to play some music over by Everlasting Life. I forget where they are. We put it on our Instagram page at Roots Rock Reggae Live. I'm going to play a set over there. But, I'm basically just championing that roots reggae is alive and well. And that, there's been a lot of talk about reggae music becoming hate music, for example. It was overrun by people who were influenced by American evangelicals. But just to show that, you can play music that uplifts everyone in the community and talk about the things that we should be considering, how to unite, how to build community, how to have good relationships with each other. So I played old stuff and any new stuff that's all about that each week on my radio show, and I'm all about promoting that. I'm going to be doing more things to promote positive music, positive reggae music in the future. So rootsrockreggaelive.com is a web space that I'm currently developing to bring that across to good people that love reggae music. Yeah, man.
Make sure that the link is in the show description, and I hope people will check it out. I will definitely be checking it out. And
thank you.
I do check it out, and that. So Rasta, yeah. I mean, you mentioned Rasta, and then also reggae is often associated with either patriarchies you mentioned, or homophobia, or some other whatever. And you're saying is that being renewed as part of the conversation post this Bob movie? Did you notice any of that? Or because they don't, I know the point is to promote Jamaica, sell tickets, and Rasta, a version of Rasta that will still sell tickets and records, whatever the digital equivalent is. But is there any ongoing struggle around what are considered to be, by some at least, some of the more older schooled or retrograde approaches?
Well, I would say that, right now when it come on to Rasta, you know, influence, I still respect the work that Muta Baruka, for example, is
Mm.
doing. Hosting some powerful conversations. I think I even noted that he did a retreat in one of the Caribbean countries for men only. It seems like one of the things that he's super concerned about is the state of manhood and how men are participating in their families and communities. I recently also interviewed him for our radio show. The link is on our things as well. And where he talked about that. He has a new album out called Black Man. Powerful track, definitely worth checking out. When I was growing up, Rastas, were really not people that so much chastise other people or judge or more fire. This is a new thing. My Rasta teachers when I was growing up, both in school, at teachers in school and in our community, they were about educating you about your right as a person, your right of
Mm.
conscience, and celebrating your black self, your full black self. If you're a half black, quarter black, or whatever, you are a black person because the black part of you is a part of you that needs you the most. They didn't try to be
Mm.
white or celebrate elements of whiteness, which in that time, in the 80s and so forth, and before that, having something else in you other than black would help you to advance in your community. So they would fight out those kinds of things and try to educate us about how to eat healthy, how important exercise is. That's Rasta, then that's the foundation of our music. So that's what I try to play, to impress upon folks that is the roots, and we're not gonna get ahead as a people, as a black people. Let me just be clear. If we don't focus on healthy living, um, having good relationships with each other, having families, however you want to define your family. If you're lucky enough to have two wives or two partners, 3 or 4, and lots of kids, and you can sustain them, more power to you. That's Rasta too. How to respect yourself, respect the people that are in your family and your village. There are issues for sure with Rastafarianism. Women are definitely seen as the helper of man, you know, but Rastas don't forbid a woman from having her own spiritual practice and for there to be balance in the family. So, and I have a lot of sisters that are about the Ifa and Yamaya and that power of the feminine energy and push back on the Rasta brethren. There are more conversational, it's a more of a conversational movement in a lot of ways. So I'm just about using the music to show that there is diversity of thought and of expressing that spirituality, and also that there's diversity in the music, and that I can focus on the positive elements of the music that celebrates everyone and have music to play forever, without ever touching a track that push down any group of people for whatever reason. So that's what I'm about these days, and because that's what I grew up with, and I think that's very important.
Just quickly, I see Musa just popped in. Shout out to you, Musa.
Hmm.
Did Rodney and Marley ever meet?
Walter Rodney. I
Yeah, because the
don't
comment here, this is
know.
why Rodney had such a great comradeship with Rastas during his time in Jamaica. Did they ever cross paths? I don't remember
You know
hearing
what? It's
about that, but that's
possible
interesting.
because Walter Rodney was teaching in Jamaica while Bob was there. I think in the 1960s to 70, early 70s. Um, and what Walter Rodney did is to go into Rasta communities and build with them. In fact, he has a book, Groundings with My Brothers, that comes out of that
Mhm.
experience to teach African history, study groups with Rastafarianism. He didn't just stay up in the university and be a scholar. He went down to where the people were. Actually, I'll rephrase that in Rasta way. He went up to where the people were and built with the Rasta people because he felt that those folks had it right, celebrating their Africanity and so on and so forth. Or somebody is saying in the chat that they met in Zimbabwe.
Is that right?
Possibly, but that's
Even
probably
a even a
so. But Yeah, but
more
they
to
probably
my
met before
point,
Zimbabwe.
but more to my point, why that should have been the concert that was the
Hmm.
centerpiece of a film. If you're gonna pick
Yeah,
one, it should have been that one instead. It got just one line of text at the end of the movie.
that's
Uh,
right.
yeah, I just don't
Yeah.
remember reading about any of their meetings or anything like that.
It's
And I
quite
don't remember
possible,
just
like
yeah.
someone said that there's still so much about Bob Marley that, for example, that is not written. In fact, there's so much about Jamaican history which is not even written. All
Mm,
of our history is still being told.
mm,
We still don't even study it in school. We have to, have these conversations to understand so much of our history. But I would venture to say they probably met before they met in Zimbabwe, if they did actually meet in Zimbabwe, because Walter Rodney was building, and Bob Marley was never separated, especially in the early part of his before 72 and those years when Walter Rodney became persona non grata in Jamaica, and then of course he was assassinated. He was in the communities, and Bob was in those communities too. There was Rasta people were always studying. It's amazing, some of the music, when you listen to it, you're like, wow, how did they stay in Jamaica where certain books were banned and so much information was not shared and know all this stuff? They were all about it.
hey, and right on, Musa. While we're offering suggestions about what we could do, you could put us in touch via email and suggest these ideas when we're not
Hmm.
live. That would be great. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Would love to have her on.
Yes, I think she would come on too. She's very accessible, the last at least from what I understand. Yeah.
Right on. So just one more, because I know we're running over here, but what role, if any, do you think colorism accounts for the vitriol against Mama Rita versus the fawning over Cindy's relationship, despite Jamaica being so Christian? Cindy laughs over Beauty and the Beast. Is that an accurate description, do you think, of how Rita is treated versus Cindy?
Well, I would definitely say that um, Cindy Breakspear definitely gets a pass and is somewhat embraced because of colorism and the fact that she was Miss Jamaica and I think then Miss World, and she's affiliated with the upper class Jamaicans, which a lot of colorism there that define class. So yes, it's true. If she was another black woman like Rita Marley having an affair with Rita Marley's husband, um, the vitriol would be quick and swift,
Mm,
and
mm.
nobody would be saying, how was she left out of the film? But I would think a majority of Jamaicans are saying, why is there a conversation about the fact that she was left out of the film? She does not belong in the film. She's not a wife. She's a woman on the side. She and how many other women? There was a child born a few months after her child was born, so Bob wasn't faithful to her only. The evidence speak for itself, as they would say.
Layered
So yes, so there's a lot of
infidelities.
clapback. The clapbacks are swift and plenty against all of that. But yeah, colorism, um, you know, is a thing there. Yeah, somebody said pigmentocracy.
Oh,
It's
is
still
that
clear. Yeah. The
the
only thing that I'll say though is that
pigmentocracy?
um, Cindy Breakspear, did have a very important relationship with Bob Marley, and she has been very honest and transparent about that relationship, about when she found out, for example, that he was married, because at some point Bob Marley started saying he wasn't married. One, because the music industry wanted that from him, and two, because as he said,
Mm,
marriage is a way to control men, and that a man should have enough woman. But the Western idea of marriage suggests that he should have one woman, and that is not right in Rastafari. So, there's a lot of nuances, which I think it would be great if the film had a conversation between him and his wife and the womanizing, and he reminding her that he's a Rasta man and he's entitled to all the queens, because he did say that. I've watched him say
instead
that.
they just throw the one line at each other. It's
Yeah,
like, well, you
yeah.
cheated on me. Well, you cheated on me, and then they just leave.
Uh,
It's like
it wasn't
ah.
like that. Bob Marley has said that if only one woman was attracted to him, something would be wrong with him. That it's right that many women are attracted to him, and he will have as many of those women as want him. And if his wife sees another man that she wants to be with, she's free to go to that man. But she have to leave him and go to that man. She can't have the other man and be with him at the same time. But he can have all the women that he wants. So you said a lot of these things. There's a lot for some folks to take, but that's Rasta. That's a Rasta man. but they had their own understanding, so it wasn't as trivial and as I'm forgetting the good English word that would describe the way people are talking about it. You are talking about people who are living by completely different rules that our Christian society, hold dear. So,
listen, Suzette, I love you to death, and it's great to have you come through here.
The
and
feeling is mutual, brother.
And I think, and I agree with what I saw from somebody in the chat that should you ever feel like adding to your radio work, a little YouTube work, that you should come around more often, do your own thing around here. I would fully support and endorse that. Put my 2 cents on that. But
I before we close out, I want to say
sure.
I respect the work. Aside from you being my bestie, I definitely respect the work that you're doing, your commitment, and bringing these important conversations. I mean, this is not even one of those important conversations, but you brought so much, to so many people, and I really respect and appreciate you, and always here to support you. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Well, anytime. Anyway, as much as possible. So we'll definitely look to set up another excuse to have you come back, or have part 2, and or maybe just have you come through every once in a while to give us summaries of what you've been doing on your radio show. I mean, that would be dope too. Get a little
awesome. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
Summary. Much love to you and your family. We'll talk soon. Thank you for this and everything else that you do. And peace, because I know you're willing to fight for it, like Fred Hampton used to say.
That's right. That's right.
Right on.
Peace, brother. Peace.
Like on, right on. Take care.
One love. Take care.
Yes, indeed. Right on. All right, good people. Oh man, that was dope. That was dope. Suzette is the greatest. So right on. Thanks to her for coming through and doing this fresh off of her less than a few hours. I think she was been back from Jamaica for like 5 minutes. So that was great. Thanks to all of you who came through here live. This has been fantastic. To our extended media and production crews out here, thank you very much. Look forward to hearing from you, Musa. Thank you for the idea. And I think Kenyatta, you had a good idea too. Kenyatta. But if you would all just email me these suggestions. It's easier for me to keep track, and we'll go from there. All right, good people. Please make sure you like, share, subscribe. Make sure you have the bell rung so you don't miss things that are coming up. And I'm not sure. I think we're going to get a hit of Darker Than Blue. We Who Are Darker Than Blue. I want to say 5 o'clock. I'm not sure. But then at 7 o'clock, definitely come back again for the Black Myths critique of BPM. And yeah, thanks everybody. Really appreciate you. This has been great. Much love to my dearest Suzette and her family. And we'll talk again soon. Peace to all of you, only if you're willing to fight for it, like Fred Hampton used to say. And we're going to have to fight indeed, goddammit. Peace. Thanks, everybody.
And what do you sacrifice? Calm. Kindness, kinship, love. I've given up all chance at inner peace. I made my mind a sunless space. I share my dreams with ghosts. I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago for which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight, that set me on a path from which there's no escape. I yearn to be a savior against injustice without contemplating the cost, and by the time I look down, there's no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. I I'd burn my decency for someone else's future. I'd burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see. Now, the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything, 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 everything.